You said something about 1999. Did you say what was the window there? Why
The
do you?
millennium bug. So like the fear over the launch and introduction of computers in every single office around the world, it was all implemented from a fear-based state. And few people probably did, but it didn't get much traction. Like, hang on a minute, we've got a real piece of kit and technology here. We can use this for everyone's advantage, including profit bottom line, not just people's work-life and balance. And we just completely missed that chance. And it was just all about the fear of the millennium bug, which didn't even happen.
Wow, exactly. So that was really around the Y2K hype and the extremity. Yeah.
So I was just into the working world in 1999. Like 1998 was my first full-time office job. So I was in like my second year when all that.
Okay, I graduated from university in 99, so I didn't start working. Well, I did. Of course, I was working through college, but I know exactly what you're saying. And I wasn't old enough or mature enough to have enough life experiences to understand what was going on.
Oh,
And
I certainly didn't. This is my research recently that I've uncovered all this. I
oh,
remember it being a thing, but I didn't care. I was out getting pissed every weekend, falling down drunk. I didn't give a shit if the world was going to go to pot on midnight 1999. I was bothered about what dance floor I was going to be on and who I was seeing. But as like, the rest of the world who were like older than us, it was all about the fear. And so that intrigues me with AI because there's a lot of fear around it. But for me, it's been part of my healing. And I don't feel ashamed. At one time I probably would have jumped on the fear thing, gone, yeah, we shouldn't be using AI. You shame everybody for like bringing in the support. Whereas now I'm like, do you know what? I need this support and I am not afraid to use it and I'm not afraid to own it either, but it absolutely must be used responsibly. And we absolutely know that there is a small portion of people doing that. And unfortunately, the majority aren't. But it is just going to unearth what's already there. It's going to amplify it and it's going to be messy.
I think that there's no way that we can slow things down and regulate it now.
No.
Figure out a way to put a cap on it. But overall, like, I still have this growing sense of, okay, social media de-influencing, that's my intention, that's my goal, is trying to convince other people to become consciously aware of their digital habits and their online behaviors so that they can continue to use social media and the internet, but in a more conscious, aware state. So I think that there's just going to be this polarization of those people that don't see the consciousness behind their behavior, and they are not able to attach reality that is there outside of what they're seeing, what their brain is digesting. And this goes for all children and pretty much anyone under the age of 26 that doesn't have a defined prefrontal cortex. I think it's just, it'll definitely be a maneuver to brainwash an entire future of generations.
Yeah, well,
and there's going to
social media, like the computers and the millennium bug and everything, every system we've created is designed to brainwash us, isn't it?
Yeah. This is what's so crazy. It's the same thing as like nuclear energy. It could be such a great thing and heal all of our world problems and solve everything if we didn't have a bunch of asshats using it incorrectly. And greed.
Yeah.
Hello, Amber. How are you today? That was the hook.
We had to put our 2 pence in and put the world to rights.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So Amber, today I'm so excited to host you and to have you here as a guest on Odds Pods. We are going to talk today about social media exposure as a slow content creator and from that perspective. So I'd like to say hello and invite you here to introduce yourself to the readers and the audience.
I love this topic. Thanks so much for inviting me on to Odd Pod, Audra. It's great to be here with you. Yeah, my name is Amber and I am an author and migraine educator. My main platforms being on Substack and LinkedIn. I'm just in the process of publishing my second book. After having found myself disabled by an illness I'd kept quiet about for 20 years in 2018, and then going through what I can only later, or I had only later reflected on to realise was an awakening, and that awakening was more to do with what was true for me and what was coming up for me, and starting to kind of drown out the noise around me and listen, allowing my body to be my guide. So sharing my story on my platforms is what got me started and got me going, and then what has brought me here today.
Awesome. Well, I found your work very early on in my Substack journey, and I was in the algorithms of a bunch of other very slow content, wonderful, yummy creators coming out of the UK. And I think I found your work through Claire Venus, who amazing, deserves a shout out. And in that group, I found all of these wonderful artists and creators, and that actually inspired me to format and lay out my Substack. And what I did is set my Substack up like a journal, like a private little art studio where I could just share my writings and build a portfolio. And this was before I was using AI to do any editing or layout specific, or, AI didn't even know what Substack was at that point. So my first podcast that I recorded, my first articles that I wrote, they're all still there, and they are atrocious. But it's my studio, It's like if someone were to come over and you're like, do you want to see my art? So I appreciated finding you because you were talking about chronic illness, and I understand chronic illness, having alopecia and having my autoimmune diseases. And depression and mental health issues as well. So I was like, somebody who's actually explaining the experience of what the pain feels like in our body, and she's treated it. So she's healed this. So she's doing something about it, and she's moved on with life, and she's no longer living with this chronic pain. So I myself don't suffer from migraines. I can't imagine what that hell would be like. I have had a couple of migraines, and it literally did shake my world. So I commend you for your efforts, and I invite everyone to go check out Amber's work. So I gave you a little bit of brief synopsis from my perspective. What's your perspective of why you wanted to set up a blog and share a newsletter and communicate with an audience? You have a huge presence on LinkedIn where you just unabashedly share your heart out and share about your journey. And it's a really unique perspective because on LinkedIn, it's so commercialized there and pushy for the corporate world, but yet here you are showing up. So what do you
bless you. Thank you so much. Yeah, I definitely have a unique experience on LinkedIn versus what I hear about it from other people, which I'm really thankful for. For me, it just seems so spacious on that platform, similarly with Substack and all it has to support you and offer. So what got me started in showing up as I am, meeting myself where I'm at, starting with where I am, working with what I've got, is that was one of my guiding principles through this health, this kind of hellscape that I've been through over recent years, but really spanning my entire adult life. Starting with where I was and working with what I had became also a guiding principle for showing up on social media. And what got me started was I just term him as my healing coach. He's a yoga teacher, bodywork massage therapist, do a lot of breath work and meditation with him. But he planted the seed to write a book back in 2019. Back then, I didn't feel like I had a story. I didn't realize how unbelievably rife and common this chronic illness was, tied in with all the other manner and range of chronic illnesses, of which it's now becoming increasingly common that we're living with a kind of range and abundance of these diagnoses. I just didn't think I was doing anything differently to what anyone else would be doing who found themselves in the frightful situation that I did. He planted that seed, and I kind of dismissed it initially, thinking, well, who am I to tell this story? Who am I to share what I'm doing and what I've discovered and learned and found out? But then I went on a weekend retreat, and we were creating a vision board. And I don't know, I think in that space away from everything, I just thought, you know what, if I'm going to write a book, it's going to have to be an international bestseller. So I whacked international bestseller on my vision board. And I'd done vision boards before, but I'd never been that bold and daring and brave with them. You know, I'd put things on like salt baths and bike rides and, you know, runs and things in the before days. So yeah, that was probably the most biggest and bold thing I'd ever done. And I approached social media completely, you know, some might say backwards. For me, it was the very reverse way around. I didn't set about showing up on social media to build a following and get loads of likes. I set about social media to start writing and to write my posts and start sharing my story. So yeah, I'll leave that there. That's the first part.
How was that received for you? Of course, you had people following you on social media that were your friends and your family. Did they know what you were doing? Were they supportive?
Oh, that's such a good question. So, because my first post I shared about body image,
Yeah.
I was shaking. I was shaking like a leaf at sharing so openly and vulnerably in a way that I never had before to anyone. And one of the first reactions I got instantly was one of my friends. I live in Yorkshire, East Yorkshire. She lives in West Yorkshire. Actually, I was living in the Northeast at the time. And she reached out to me saying how important it was for her to encourage a healthy body image for her twin girls, and what great work I was doing. And so to have that instant validation and confirmation and reassurance straight away obviously connected me to that deeper purpose and meaning, and that actually, holy shit, you know, I'm going to influence people with what I'm sharing here. So yeah, thankfully, when it came to that side of things, I've only had support from people in that respect, but there were possibly a lot of people, I don't know who see my posts. I know some of my friends are, but I don't really know who see my posts out of my family and things like that. And well, yeah, and what their I don't really know what their thoughts and concerns and views might be. It's been certainly what's being shared has been very positive and welcome. So
that's amazing. Good for you. It's difficult to get in a space and feel validated, especially when you express yourself online. It's easier to do that in a space where you're a total stranger. And I think that's what Substack brought for me. I was already to a place where I was annoying everyone that knew me personally. I was like, hi, can you read this article that I wrote? And they're like, no, I have no time. And so I set up, you know, my blogs on both Medium and Substack and was just like frantically binging, posting, doing whatever I could just to get it out. But writing for me is more of a cathartic process. So the process of just getting it out, I don't even actually go back and reread a lot of the things that I wrote because it usually upsets me because of like the editing, the perfectionist, you know. And I'm dyslexic, so I always find typos, and thank God for AI now. And I've heavily relied on it this last 18 months, really editing my articles so that I get the spelling right. Like even though I'm a native English speaker, I don't comfortably speak English well, and especially my inner dialogue and getting that out into words, that's difficult. And the other thing, back in the early days, like I was journaling, hardcore journaling, writing things down, and I still have journals, you know, that I keep, and that's where my to-do lists are kept. So that also was hard. I had to train myself how to not just write my thoughts, but now type them. And now I'm having to train myself to voice text to type and use technology to get me there faster. I'm like, wow, I remember romanticizing writing in a creative writing class when I was a child and just being like, this feels good. And you'd look down and you'd have like this much written, you know? So for me, it's been wonderful just to appreciate the journey of being a creator and an artist and a writer, and just finding your own tone and being in your own little bubble. And then all of a sudden you're like, wow, somebody validated my existence. Somebody actually appreciated and agrees with what I have to say.
Yeah, and I will caveat that with saying, I think we might have touched on this before. There was one thing keeping myself safe and small in this little tiny pond, this little tiny area of the internet that I was on. I did, it's not to say that support was relentless or never ending. There were times where I felt like it would have been nice to have some more, like you say, for more people to read your work. No one really came to join me on Substack when I moved there, but I also had enormous fear around the fear of repercussion, the fear of not being liked as well. I've realized is quite a big driver for me, that wanting to be liked by everybody, and that has definitely kept me quite small on my platforms. So yeah, I'll caveat that with that, because there's definitely been a lot of fear about how I will be seen and how I will be perceived by others.
That's perfect. It brings me to my next question for you. What do you find the value in keeping a small audience? How do you find that valuable? How does that work in your favor?
Oh, it's definitely helped me be more vulnerable. Yeah, it's definitely helped me be more vulnerable because, excuse me, there were further occasions, the body image post was the first one. A couple of years later, I remember sharing one about my struggle of slowing down, and I felt physically sick. I felt absolutely sick to my stomach by admitting out loud.
Why?
That I was struggling, that I was struggling with slowing down, that it was
were you worried that people would judge you?
I think what it was, I felt like I was the only one, because I had no idea how many people were going to come back and say the whole Me Too thing. Like, I think that's what it was. I think I felt very much like I was the only one with this gigantic problem. Everyone else had it nailed. Everyone else, one of my patterns is that everybody else knows everything except me. So I felt like everybody else could slow down, everybody else could do what they needed to do, everybody else could take care of themselves, and they had it all sorted, and it was just me. Because that was the big turnaround. It was like, oh wow, this is my, I wrote a blog on Substack a little while later called On Slowing Down, The Struggle is Real. And it became instantly my overnight success. That was my highest performing, highest read, highest engaged blog that I've written in 4 years.
Wow.
So yeah, I think it was that feeling like I was the only one, because it was a huge shift to realize that I wasn't.
So your users actually, or your followers, your audience, they came back and responded with like relatability and confirmation of what you're saying. Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk quickly about a niche. Like, I refuse to niche, first of all, on any platform and anything that I do. And I refuse to niche in life as well. So I'm just a person who has a lot of interest. And for you, you have niched very, very well, because you're getting very specific on a particular topic, and then you're providing solutions. Like, at this point of my creative journey, I'm not yet providing solutions because I'm still defining my intention, right?
Yeah.
Right. So let's talk a little bit about like the power of niching down. Yes, of course, that's important. And I've got like 3 buckets that I focus on. How did you leverage that? How did you leverage your tone, your lens, your perspective? And you can still talk about macro ideas and issues and problems, but you're still able to perceptualize those in a micro image.
Yeah, it's a good topic to be discussing, because I would say that I've niched down with challenge. I found that really challenging to identify A, who my niche is, and B, whether to do it or not. And I'm really in awe and admiring those conscious creators that are stepping out now and saying, I know we're told to niche, and everyone's saying that's what you must do and you should do, but I'm not. I think that's absolutely brilliant and wonderful. The only reason I've niched is because when I was researching how to write an international best-selling book, which, remember, is my vision, it was very clear that for that purpose, there had to be a niche. And there was also kind of my own inner insight and knowing and realization that I am niching now, and it's for a time, and it's to serve a purpose, and it is going to support my book becoming a global bestseller. And that is why I'm niching. But I have ummed and ahed and had, real challenge with sitting with that, with identifying with that. Do I go with that? Do I stay with that? And even now, sometimes that little inner doubt creeps in, because essentially my mission is to help women find the voice and take the power back. And the energy of those I'm uniquely here to serve are those ready to take back the reins of creation for their own life, for their own health, and for their own healing. And that could be very broad and doesn't necessarily need to have a niche behind it. But it is just because of the purpose of the book, and also the research that I've done on migraine. I mean, it is deep, phenomenal. There's a breadth and width to it. It's the way that I've brought it together for my book has never been presented in that way before, and it's so needed. And therefore, again, the niche ties in with a great purpose to that.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, I think creators, they become the niche themselves, and then the audience will find them to put very little practice behind the intention, because the audience will just naturally attract to that creator, right? So I think also there's a little bit of expressing versus performing. You know what I mean? Like for me, when I write about mental health and depression and anxiety and addiction and super heavy topics, I try to write about it like, if I share a story, I'm sharing it from the perspective of being in that affliction. But if I'm writing about it and I'm trying to spread information and share a story that gives a solution, then I'm trying to pull that narrative out of my head that's so emotional and apply more logic to it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's when the inner critic and the inner therapist will take over and be like, okay, no, now it's where you put boundaries and you don't talk about how you feel. You just facts. So I think with niching down, you'll find your audience by radiating more authenticity and just expressing that instead of performing it. You know, how are you feeling now that you've been on this journey for a few years and developed? Yeah, you have your own courses, you have your own audience, you have your own platform that you host events with, and you're building your own Substack with podcasts as well. You go live, you do all sorts of exposure. How do you feel about now living in this spotlight, if you will, when you're okay with having this private, quiet life that you do have?
Only for the first time in recent months have I felt less afraid. For the last few years, whilst I've been showing up and writing and sharing and attempting to do podcasts and trying to become visible, like I said before, the fear has been so debilitating. That has really kept me quite small. So, I mean, I used to ask myself that question, who do you think you are? Who do you think you are to be looking after yourself to the extent that you are? Who do you think you are to be prioritizing your needs? Who do you think you are to be sharing your story and showing people that actually there is a way and we can create it for ourselves? And now there's been like a complete role reversal. And now I'm asking myself the question, actually, who am I not to? Who am I not to share my story and show people that there is another way? Who am I not to inspire others to see what lies within them and activate, their truth from within and help them connect to who they are beyond their diagnosis?
I love that. Yeah, definitely. And I think a big part of that is self-acceptance, self-love, and really understanding and knowing yourself. And those are things that, I think everyone everywhere suffers from. Yeah, it's hard to stay dedicated to your intention. Do you ever find yourself into like a stagnant creative pause where you just feel like, okay, I'm done talking about this. I don't want to talk about my pain anymore. I just want to experience joy and what it's like not to have pain. What's that like for you?
Gosh, I don't even know where to start with that one. That's such a good question. I have, in the last few years, since I was like in a really privileged position where I had a home to sell, so I was able to sell my home, and then I took a sideways move to move into a rented room in someone else's house, which thank goodness, because we were in the middle of a pandemic and I went into a massive health relapse in 2020. So that kind of base in someone else's house just gave me the structure and obviously the living accommodation that I needed in a way that I could then survive that relapse and come out the other side. And then I moved into a caravan, a static caravan, whereby I then didn't have any rent or overheads in respect of rent or mortgage. That opened up inadvertently, without me even being aware of it, a dream way of living, a lot of freedom. It also came with the realization that it was easier to be severely ill than it was to continue on with the work in the way that I had to keep bringing those health improvements in. So that was a hell of a realization, and not really talked about so much. But from that space, I then became intentional around bringing in flow and ease into my life. And that's really helped support me in my writing, because I don't have a structure in my writing. I don't follow a rhythm or a routine. I don't have a plan and it all mapped out. I'm a soul-led writer, and so I write as inspired, and the ideas come to me and they'll flow from there. So it's interesting you mentioned the articles and the pieces that we've written and perhaps the videos that we've done that are absolutely atrocious. And I have those too, like anyone else. But I never saw this coming. The first 3 blogs that I ever wrote in my entire life have made it into my book. Not in the order that they were written or in any order at all, the kind of near the back and here and higgledy-piggledy. I did not see that coming. So I do ebb and flow with my writing, and I do things like I've done recently. I've had to take a break from writing my book for over a month, and I'm at this critical stage of publishing it, editing it, and the pressure of like, it really needs to be out there. I want to get this published, but this is the way that I work that is sustainable. I've taken that break. It's opened up space to become visible in ways that I haven't before, with yourself and other people that I've been doing lives and podcasts with on Substack and LinkedIn. And also I've created some further offerings that complement those already available as part of an ecosystem on Substack. So yeah, that is how I write, so that it is in flow, it is supported, it's soul-led, and it's sustainable.
Okay. That is so messy and yet so beautiful and just so human, and such a great response, because you were really just given all sorts of like, yeah, I failed here, but I'm trying there and I'm doing this. This is the practice. This is the craft, right? Is that you just keep trying and keep going with what your gut feels. And you know, as a person, when I started writing, it was as a way to provide therapy, a therapeutic means for me to get over my divorce, get over my career change, get over the midlife crisis that I was going through, the burnout. And then what I noticed is that I got so burned out on writing about trauma.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, because it started to change my mindset and my perception, and it started making me really angry, and that fueled like the inner anger, and I couldn't get it out, right? So at some point I had to shift and just walk away and be like, you know what? No. And I do this often on social media. I get really pissed off and I get angry at myself, and I get really sick and mad for following all the news that I do and binging on reels and following things on YouTube, you know, and then I get so pissed off that I'm like, ugh, you know, just, and that is the messy process, because you have to like go there. You have to fall and sink into those rock bottom places in order to come out of it with a more enlightened perception of where you're going. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Oh, I really do. You speak again to that moment where I moved. It was just before I moved into the caravan. I could only write small amounts to start with. So I was on Instagram and Facebook writing very small posts. You're limited there in terms of your content. So I was quite comfortable writing those small snippets. And then I was invited to write a blog for Healers Magazine, missed the invite because it went in my Facebook Messenger, found it 4 months later, wrote that blog for Healers Magazine. I couldn't write another blog for about 8 months, but just words started flowing from there, flowing and flowing and flowing. And then my healing coach was like, write the damn book.
Yeah.
But the bit that you speak to, where you start going into areas of trauma, and for me, I just couldn't move through the lack of support around me in 2018 when my whole life collapsed. I just lost my dad. And everything was ripped from me, my identity, my career, my income, my health. And to write about that was so traumatizing for me that it then meant I couldn't return to the process of writing my book for 3 years. But again, in that space, and I wrote a whole draft for the journal as well. I wrote an entire draft in the first weekend. I couldn't touch it for 3 years. But in that space, allowing that and being with that and honoring that and finding a way to support myself through that, which is critical, that was where Substack was born. That was where Substack came to life. So instead of writing my story in my book, I had to put that to one side, and I started writing my blogs for Substack. And then I wrote my second blog and my third blog. And like I say, those first 3 blogs have made their way into my book. There's 250 on there now or something like that. I mean, like you look back at them, some of them are not even a full piece. Where am I even going with this? What am I even trying to say? That doesn't exist in a lot of my past blogs. They're just, but something somewhere reaches someone, and that's what I've believed in a lot, is the energy of the words that we're sharing. Something in there reaches someone, even if it's not perfect, even if it's not whole and complete and coherent and comprehensive. Something touches someone, and that yeah, that's what it has to be about for me.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Okay, we're coming to the end of our agenda. I just want to take a moment to invite anyone watching that's still here to ask themselves how they consciously show up online, because I've identified that we're all either consuming, we're creating, or we're contributing, right? And that goes for our roles in social media. It goes for our time spent on the internet or behind our desktop, So making aware of how much time is actually spent online, but also what you're doing with the behavior and how that behavior is changing you, right? In your everyday reality. Do you want to speak on anything to hopefully shed some light around these unconscious biases and behaviors that are changing us?
Oh, yeah. I mean, showing up as a conscious creator. It's interesting because when I was on Instagram and Facebook, just showing up sporadically, sharing these posts, as I say, kind of as and when inspired and kind of really guided in ways that I didn't realize I was being guided at the time. I didn't do it for the likes or the engagement. I mean, I loved that. People were messaging me, sharing thank yous, heartfelt thank yous, and I couldn't understand where they were coming from or quite the impacts that my posts were having. I've later reflected on it, and I can really see that how these posts, I mean, for example, one woman messaged me telling me that me moving into a caravan inspired her to move her and her son to a location near the beach for the primary benefit of their mental health. Just as one example. But what was really interesting when I got onto Substack was that all of a sudden I fell into the comparison trap in a big way. And I'm still a little bit affected by that, and in ways that I wasn't beforehand. So looking at other people's platforms, me with a few hundred members, an audience of a few hundred, 4 years in, and somebody else has been on 6 months and already hitting 2,000, which we see all the time. And they're getting, a post with 40 likes and, a couple of dozen comments, and I'm not back down to like 4 likes if I'm lucky, is where I'm at the moment, sort of thing, and a couple of comments, which, but I still get excited every time. And I think it's remembering to come back to the meaning in that, like you mentioned before we hit record, about the audience and the depth of contact, the depth of connection that we're having with these people. And 4 likes is so valued by me, and a couple of comments or what have you. So yeah, that's been really interesting, falling into the comparison trap when I wasn't there before, and being consciously aware of that And I guess looking for that part of me that's looking for instant gratification, that's been conditioned to seek it. And that's a continual practice for me. That's not something I've got nailed. You know, I'm still seeing people with 1,000 subscribers in a month, and things taking off in a way that I might look like they have taken off and are doing better than what I'm offering, for example. And having to come back to the deeper meaning and the purpose, and remind myself how grounded I am in this process, how the foundations that I have beneath me, they're so solid. And how can I compare apples with oranges when I don't know where that person's at, or what their purpose is, or whereabouts on their soul journey and their mission they are? All I can keep doing is coming back to myself.
Yeah, and I think in my case, certainly this is true, and for you as well, that we're not here chasing fame or the mass audience. We're here to share a very hard, difficult message that gives a transformative solution, right? And that isn't for the masses to hear, right? That's really already niching down your audience by putting us in front of the people who are willing to understand and have those kinds of conversations that are transformative. Yeah, indeed. Thank you, Amber, for your time. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, it's been wonderful, and yeah, just to complement what you final share there, that you know, really embodying is the term, embodying that I am not here for everyone. I could comprehend that on a mental level, but actually embodying it when I'm showing up, that I am not here for everyone, and it is those people that I am here for, and it's those people that I want to, you know, focus on connecting with and draw my attention to, rather than, you know, distracting myself with everything else. So yeah, and it's thank you for having me here today. It's been wonderful.
Quality versus quantity, definitely. Do you have anything you want to plug? Do you have any courses that are coming up? I know you do your new moon, full moon.
My ecosystem is now I offer a lot for free on my Substack, so I'd love to connect with people over there. My embodiment practices, my meditations, pretty much all of my writing is for free, unless I don't feel comfortable sharing it with the world, which is just the occasional piece. Honest Conversations, my new live series, the Let's Talk About series. This the couple of recent ones are Let's Talk About the Illusion of Function and Awakening Through Denial, and then my Your Migraine Story Matters podcasts. I've also recently launched the Wellness Maidens, which is a healing circle on the first Friday of each month.
Yes.
And that is where we come together as part of a reflective practice to glean any insights, and it's a free offering. So yeah, I'd love for those that resonates with, I'd love to put
we're gonna note that. Yes. And I'm usually Fridays, I'm always here with my girls, so I'm gonna have to join one of those.
Oh please, yeah, 10 a.m. BST and 4 p.m. BST. So yeah.
Good. Okay. I want to just close with a moment of silence and stillness and embodiment and a little bit of breath work. Are you in a chair right now with a back?
No.
No, it doesn't go back to it. Okay, so just find a comfortable seat for your bum and take your feet hip distance apart and put your feet flat on the floor. And then roll the shoulders in some circles and drop your chin towards your neck a little bit and give yourself some head rolls side to side. Studying at the desktop is never fun for our bodies. All right, bring the head back to neutral, open the eyes, and then spread the arms wide out to like a T. Bend the elbows, and like you're lifting with platters, lift the arms up. And as you do so, push like you're pushing something heavy. And feel the tension there, and then see how the arms are like way up here by the ears. Roll the shoulders down and back and take the arms wide. And then drop the chin towards the chest. And then we're going to take a breath here. Inhale. And then exhale, drop the chin a little bit more. Oh, that should feel good. And bring the head back to neutral. Drop the arms down to the side. And then we're going to make one big circle with the arms and inhale up. And then exhale the palms down. Oops. Exhale the palms down and push the palms in front of you. And let's do it 2 more times. So we're going to inhale, come up. And then the palms go down. Exhale. Push the chi and the center of gravity all the way down. One more time. Inhale up. And slow down the exhale as slow as you can go. And this time, just set comfortably into your seat. Relax the arms on the legs. And put a ball between your chin and your chest so that you sit a little bit more upright. Roll the shoulders down and back. And let's just take a few moments to hear ourselves breathe. And bring the hands to heart center to offer kind intentions. And thumbs to the mouth to speak kind words. And thumbs to the forehead to think kind thoughts. And namaste. Thank you, Amber, for being here.
Hey.
Okay. We can cut there. I don't know how to stop recording. Oh, wait, no, here it is. Yeah. Okay. How do you feel?
Oh, amazing. Really enjoyed that so much. It was wonderful. And then to finish with that was just what I needed.